Sioux Empire Podcast, episode 107, The Case of the Lady Sanics, and me, Jeremy Brown.
A pathless wilderness, wild, rugged, that was a hardy frontier, far from the paths of civilization.
If you close your eyes, you can pretend it's North Dakota,
Where fortune beckoned with a glittering smile.
Well, have you seen South Dakotans, John? They're insanely hot.
And life hung on the quickness of a trigger finger.
I will do my best to listen more intently.
The Sioux Empire Podcast.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another great episode of the Sioux Empire Podcast. I am your host, Robert Mailing. This is the Sioux Empire Podcast, the quirky but harmless podcast that's all about Sioux Empire news, comedy, music, and culture. Joining me, as always, is Natasha to the Estes.
Still no snappy thingamajigger.
Seth Glover.
She stole mine. The Snowmageddon really has me off my game.
At the time this airs, that's going to have been like a month ago or more.
Oh yeah, it's going to be nice out when this airs, and they're going to be like,
Snowmageddon? What?
Let it go.
Well, South Dakota will already be in like second summer. Also joining us is Jeremy Brown with Throne Publishing.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. With that, we're going to go ahead and slip right into Seth's bi-weekly book club.
What's that sound? It's the sound of Seth's Sioux Empire Podcast bi-weekly book club. The books aren't about the Sioux Empire, but Seth reads them in the Sioux Empire.
Hey everybody, welcome to another great edition of Seth's bi-weekly book club. I am sorry that, I totally did a bi-weekly book club last week, so never mind. I was about to apologize for no reason. And by the way, I'd like to shout out to Melissa May again for reading her very, very creepy tale, Mama. This week, it's another creepy tale. It's not really a book, it's a short story in classic Seth fashion, catering to the people who would like to be a part of a bi-weekly, or a book club that don't really like to read all that much.
Perfect.
Exactly. So this week it was the Case of Lady Sanics by Arthur Conan Doyle.
Whoever that is.
Whoever that guy is. I believe this was written in the 1890s. But, so the story is it revolves around an affair that a prominent London surgeon is having with a married lady of Sannox. So they the thing about it is that they're having this affair, but they don't really try and hide it. Neither of them tries to hide it.
Yeah, the story makes it pretty clear they're pretty open about it, and everyone thinks that the cuckold husband is just a total idiot, and yeah.
Exactly, yeah, pretty much, because they're, gallivanting around town, it doesn't matter if it's midday or whatever.
Gotta love Victorian era gallivanting.
Yes, oh yeah, that's why I do like reading these old-time stories, is because they spoke in such a different way, wrote in such a different way, used different words, that it's pretty fun. There's always a few words that I'm looking up and I'm just like, what? Nobody, yeah. So, as always, it's good to have a variety of authors that you read. And I love this book. Rob has requested one because it's just dope with so many great little stories. This one's rather, it's another creepy one. It's from a classic Tales of Horror book, so, basically, it ends with a, trick. There's a little trick played on the, this, I don't know what to call them, type of couple, but, this...
On both of them.
this? Oh, certainly, yeah. So the husband plays a trick on both of them, and it's just a vicious, devious, just a maniacal sort of sadistic trick that is. I mean, you know,
it's got a really, really dark, because it's a book of horror stories, but it's got a really dark Count of Monte Cristo kind of like, I came back and I'm not the idiot everyone thinks I am kind of way. Yeah. It's
got that really great sort of pull the rug out from under you ending that a lot of these stories have. So at the end, you know, with no surprise, the husband knows of this affair and he wants to take retribution, and so in a very cunning and sadistic way, he makes his the perpetrator against him. That's the wrong word, but he makes him basically carry out his own punishment without his knowledge. So the surgeon was meeting with his mistress later that night when all of a sudden the husband comes in and he's got a big sack of gold that he's, you know, you have to see my wife right away. She's been poisoned with this dagger, and it's an incurable poison.
And you're missing the part where he doesn't know it's the husband because the guy is disguised as a Turk and has this whole like elaborate backstory, and yeah.
So yeah, it's complete trickery by the husband.
It's a very Sherlock Holmes, like at the end the guy takes off the fake beard and mustache and is like, aha, it was me the whole time.
Absolutely.
Kind of like set up.
So
I was making a Scooby-Doo reference with masks.
Zoinks. Okay, I gotcha.
So the husband,
I followed you.
Fills his wife up. Oh, and I should ask, you know, Jeremy, have you ever read The Lady of Sanics?
I have not.
Okay, well, it's less than 10 pages, at least in, you know, this text form.
That's a lot. I'll say this: you can tell how good the author is by how thick that book is. A lot of times, Mark Twain said if I had more time, the letter would be shorter. So if he's fitting all this, you're saying in 10 pages?
Oh yeah, these are some dense little short stories.
It's just, yeah, there's so much going on in these few pages, and it's glorious.
Short stories are kind of an underrated art format, I think.
I totally agree.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it
takes skill.
It does, yeah, and you know, it's people should be willing to spend, you know, those 99 cents on that. That'd be really awesome to, yeah, see some more short stories, sort of authors of short stories supported like that. But getting back to the Lady of Sanics, or the case of Lady Sannox, so. The husband, you know, is kind of masking his true identity, and he fills his wife up with opium and gets her real fucked up so that she's unconscious, basically. You know, just slightly conscious, not completely knocked out. And he says to the surgeon, "You have to cut her lip off. That's where this poison is, and you can't cure the poison in any other way than taking out the affected area." And so the surgeon does it with, you know, precision and, you know, the professionalism, or the professionalism that he's renowned for, or execution that he's renowned for, and she's veiled the entire time, I should add, except for the affected area. So he doesn't know that this is his mistress that he's working on. But as soon as the deed is done, the husband starts laughing, which is just, you know, yeah, it's pretty twisted. But then obviously there's the reveal, and the surgeon, you know, learns that he's been duped and that he's defaced his mistress. Yeah, so that's, you know, if you're into monogamy and and you know, value marriage as a sacred vow and union, you know, maybe you'll like this. If you've been cheated on, you know, maybe it's a really kind of a hearty story that you'd be like, ha, boy, they had it right in the 1890s. Sorry. Oh, I don't know. What's your thoughts, Jeremy?
I think it sounds horrible.
Nah, it's funny.
You didn't give it your ranking, though. What is it, 1 out of 10? 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. What do you rank it?
Like the Retribution? No. 10 out of 10. Well, that was well played, sir. No, I'd have to say that this one... I think I like this one more than An Occurrence at Owl Creek.
What?
You gotta give it a number. What's the number?
No, that's what I'm leading up to. That's why I think this is at least like a 9. I really, really dig this story, and it kind of, I don't know, I'm maybe a little,
You like a revenge story?
Yeah,
Okay.
especially one in this kind of circumstance, you know.
Whereas I'm geeking out about
What's
the
that, Twisted? Well, yeah, you know, or Insecure, I don't know.
Curse on the Owl Creek Bridge is an American classic.
Off with, so to set the tone.
Yeah, it's a good tone to set whenever you're, regaling and retelling a story of really just heinous acts.
Excellent.
Yeah, welcome to the Sioux Empire Podcast. Heinous acts.
Welcome.
Nothing like welcoming you with a story of havoc. Actual, like the dictionary definition of havoc. So, but seriously, better than Owl Creek Bridge?
An Occurrence at Owl Creek, yeah. I just kind of dig this, let's see, I think I was An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. I think that might have been written in 1860s? I'm not right.
It had to be like late 1860s then, because it was a Civil War story, but I thought it was more like 1890s.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right, actually.
Because Owl Creek Bridge is, well, I went on that episode on a big thing about how that's like such a historically significant like piece of literature, and it's like the foundation of like a whole bunch of American literature earning legitimacy in the eyes of the world, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that was
but Conan Doyle is good. It's solid. Like it's kind of like Jeremy said. It's like 10 pages, and you have this like rich backstory, and clearly understand this history between these two and everything else from 10 pages.
This thing though, whereas An Occurrence at Owl Creek, like I immediately knew after that first paragraph what was going on, and I wasn't surprised by the end of it.
Yeah.
You know, because like it do you know An Occurrence at Owl Creek or okay?
No,
so
it's interesting hearing you talk about it. After the first paragraph, you get the whole context and the setting. Writing books, the first paragraph of a book is the hardest, in my opinion, one of the hardest parts of the whole thing to do.
Oh yeah,
To do what you did right there, to say, oh, I get this book, this is good, I'm going to keep reading it.
Oh, absolutely. These stories just rip you in and just, you know, have you just so excited to get to the end. This one, though, the ending just floored me, man. It just, like, I read it and I was just, like, my jaw dropped. And, like, I had, like, that reaction of, like, what? Oh, this is not expected, but
father of Sherlock Holmes, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Owl Creek Bridge is, like... I've ranted enough about Owl Creek Bridge. That's also a very good story. But Sir Arthur Conan Doyle stuff is also very good. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Let's give him... Yeah. Let's... Okay, never mind. Sir?
Yes, it's Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but like a typical American, I don't really give a rat's butt. So.
Well, they certainly had it in the book. It doesn't announce that suffix or that name. That part.
Prefix.
Prefix, yeah. I was like, that suffix is after. Anyway, words.
Words.
Let's get into some words today.
So, with that, you ready to transition into the interview?
Yes. Thank you for joining another bi-weekly book club. And, you know, keep reading, but not that much.
Eventually this will play transition music. Someday.
Nope, just gonna let my segue linger.
Yep. And now we actually get to talk to our guest a little bit here. This is Jeremy Brown with Throne Publishing. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me, Robert, and everyone. I'm pumped to be here.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about what you do. What's the deal with Throne Publishing? So obviously publisher, but you guys have kind of a specific specialty in the way that you do it. You like your formula for how you foster new books.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for asking. I think simply put, we interview people's parents or grandparents about their life, and then we publish a book for their family or for their business. So we don't, we do an interview in a very strategic, intentional, experience-based way, and then it produces a book.
That's really cool. I've never heard of anyone doing that, but that is... my mom was actually working on a book about my dad's life for quite a while, but it would have been so nice. He didn't really have the resources of parents and grandparents for his, but it would have been that would have been just really cool.
Yeah, we've done them from family members still around, like their kids. We just had an instance just the other day where the kids of their parents came together and for their 65th wedding anniversary bought them this experience.
Oh, that's cool.
So they're 90, 92 years old.
Oh, wow.
It's just awesome. And so we get to kind of revisit their whole life. We interview the whole life. We sit down and we really kind of intentionally recommend themes. We talk to them about what's important to them, give them a whole experience with it, create an invitation process for the family to invite them in to the process in a way that's not overwhelming but honoring, and then walk them through the whole thing. And usually there's ceremony at the end where they'll then pass the book off to their kids, the next generation.
That is so dang cool.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. We need this kind of stuff.
I'm gonna do that for her.
There you go. We need this kind of stuff. It's hard to figure out where your food comes from today, let alone your family.
Absolutely.
Right? And we need that identity. I mean, I see you have the show with Native Americans. Rich history, rich culture. So too with us, so too with anybody.
Absolutely.
And if we understand where we've been, where our family comes from, I'm going to know what are things I have going for me that I can maybe play into some strengths. What are some things I should maybe avoid? What are the bad stuff that's there? Because we're humans. We're crazy.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things too we help people navigate is, well, what do you want to say? What is beneficial for people to know and what maybe shouldn't be put in the eternity of this book? So I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because it's making accessible a way of like securing a family legacy that this is like, other than like a rich family in the Renaissance or something like that. That's I'm trying to think of another situation where people in history get to record their family history like that and have professionals working with them to like polish it and put it out there. And so when you launched this thing, I was really impressed. Like, I followed it. We've got a link in the show notes, the Kellerland story, all about it. And this is a really cool project. And this is...
Thank you.
Yeah.
It really came too, if you want to know the story of how it happened.
Yeah.
This happened to me. So, one of the things we have, I gave you a book.
Yeah.
It's called The Necessity of Legacy. I'm giving you two a book before I leave.
Nice.
I want to give away a couple
Thank you, by the way.
of those. Yeah, you're welcome. I want to give those away. It talks about why we need this to happen and how to do it. So somebody can use that as a tool. They can say, I give them, here are all the themes that we can outline. Here's a bunch of questions that they can start jotting down. You can use Ask Them, and I just want to give them away. And here's why, because, so I'm going back to December of 2015. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19 full-time. My son was born then. I was a single dad, living crazy, super crazy here in Sioux Falls. Grew up in D. Smith, South Dakota, a town of 1,200 people. Come to the big city of South Dakota, and I love it here. I've never left, and we probably never will. But that's where I was at in my life. And that's kind of how I got started. And so I'd been in business for quite a while, moving from 19 up to December 2015. I give you that backstory because I was at a point in my life where I had a lot of good things going, but I didn't really know what am I going to commit myself to. So I was at a place where I'm like, I'm ready to really commit to something, really build and establish mastery of something, but I didn't really know what. So I had thrown publishing at that time, and we would help businesses write books, tell their story through books. We just work with businesses at that point.
Yeah.
I had this nonprofit called Warrior Leadership. It's a mentorship program for young men 18 to 35 who grew up without dads or in broken homes. So I would be in prisons, I'd work with addicts, all that kind of stuff. That was going really good. I really love it, enjoy it. And then I had a company called Link that would work with businesses who would hire these troubled young men coming out of prison and help them get reestablished, plug back into the site. 3 really good things, but I was like, I can't do 3 things. I need to have one for a while that I really build, and it'll be kind of the mothership. Because I am an entrepreneur. That's who I am. But every great business owner, great operator has their one main ship.
Yep.
You can't have 15 of them at a time unless one of them's a monster.
Yeah.
Which you really built up for a long time, right? Yeah, exactly. The Scooby-Doo thing. So we're pulling it all. We're tying it all together here. But so I'm at a place where I'm wondering, what the heck am I going to do with myself? Yeah, we're doing some nice things, but I'm not building like I want to build. So, and I had mentors in my life, or live a very mentored lifestyle, had a lot of people speaking into me, but I just couldn't figure it out. And so fast forward now, here's where I get this call. I think it was December 5th of 2015. I get the call. My grandma, she's home in D. Smith in hospice care. I get that call of it's time to come back home. And I've always been close to my grandma. I was really close to my grandpa when he was around. Just super influential forces in my life. So I go running back. I'd been back there every week for quite a while. And went back there that night. And when I got there, I'll never forget, I come into the room. And the whole family's around. The bed, the kids are there. Some of the grandkids. My grandma asked me to pray for them, which I just was like taken back by. Got that done. And then I got some time alone with my grandma. And so I'm sitting there by her bed, and I'm hogging this show right now, but I'm going to get through it quick.
No, this is your time. Go for it, man.
Yeah, no.
Sitting there by the bed, and holding her hand. She's kind of dozing off a little bit. And then I realized, like, right then, that's when I was like, this is it for me and my grandma. Like, this is it. Had that moment, and I was like, okay, I've got to muster up the courage here to tell her what I want to say to her. And so I did that, and I just started thanking her for things. And one instance came to my mind then of when I was 19 years old. Maybe I was 20 at that time. I just done my first sales presentation for this first random business I started, because I quit my job to stay at home with my son and be his daycare, and that's what I was doing. I was like, well, I'll just figure something out. And so had my first sales presentation. My grandma's there, and she says to me after it, she goes, Jeremy, you're so much like your grandpa, you even walk like him. And she said that kind of in passing. And I didn't dwell on it. But I told my grandma about that moment in time, and I said, Grandma, I didn't know what that did for me, but it shaped my whole 20s. And I never dwelled on it, but it always stuck with me, right? And I told her, I said, it was 11 years later. I'm a married man in bed, and it was about 12:30 at night, and I wanted to hear her say those words again to me so bad I just about called her in the middle of the night. And I told her that. And it was really real. I remember that night laying in bed being like, man, I know exactly what she said, but I want to hear her say it. I wanted to hear her say it so bad. And then I started to reflect on the desire itself. I'm like, why do I feel this strongly about this? There's just something to this. And it made me think all my warrior guys. I'm like, they never got those words. That's why their life is so hard. And it's hard to get things figured out for them. And Native Americans, same deal. Just talented people. Rich culture, but what words did they get spoken over them? You know, and I saw that for myself, and I was like, holy smokes. And I told my grandma that, and I'm like, thank you for doing that for me. And then she just kind of woke up, and she just laid some words on me. She said, you are just like your grandpa, you need to keep doing what you're doing, and she kept saying it over and over again. And I remember just leaving there being like, holy cow, I feel like commissioned right now. I ranked that night up there with getting married and having babies. That's about the only two things that would come before that. And I remember driving home going wow, I feel incredible. I feel like commissioned, like there's something to do. But I still was like, but what am I to do? I have these three things. I know I can do any of these three things and do them well. But I want a sense of call. I want to feel like I'm called to do this. Not like I just chose it because it's a good opportunity. And so she passes away. We're looking at pictures at the funeral, doing that whole thing, and I noticed there's a binder there. It was like this thick, and I started paging through it, and there was letters and receipts, and it was donation stuff. My grandma and grandpa, it was they had funded churches, hospitals, orphanages, build all kind of stuff all over the world, and she never told any of us that. And that was one of 3 binders of like that. There's letters of people, and they'd be like, hey, this missionary's going over here, and she'd be like, here's the credit card, I'll pay it off every month. And they did that so many times, never said nothing. And when I was looking at that, that's when, to me, I was like, that's what she was talking about to me. That's what she knew I was going to find this stuff. And that's when I was like, okay, she gave me permission to be who I am. because I always think about business models, and I thought that was evil. I like really felt bad about me. I'll literally walk into a church. I'm like, okay, there are 300 chairs times 12. How much does it cost to insure this place? What's the staff? I think about those things all the time, and I thought it was bad. But she's like, you're like your grandpa. My grandpa was a huge philanthropist, entrepreneur all over the world. Do that. So she didn't like pigeonhole me or put it, but she's like, here's the strengths I see in you. Use them. And so that's when I was like, okay, well, what's my number one asset I have right now? Best business was Throne Publishing. That's when I made the decision. We started hiring people and going to town, and now we're doing this, and we're growing more than ever before. But it's because I'm so grateful for what my grandma did for me. It was a sentence, you know, and it was a special time we had. So I'm like, how can we manufacture that a little bit? How can we create a safe place for people to not only give their stories and their heritage, but to say some things they need to say, to speak some words over the next generation? And that's what we do now. We create this experience that's super powerful to help them and feel empowered to say what they really want to say. Because we say to every matriarch and patriarch that comes through, you're not doing this for you. We are doing this for you. It's about you, but it's not about you. This is for the 7th generation that'll never know you, never see you, that's going to need your words. They're going to need them someday. And we call them in this book I give away, acts of courage. We come to this point, an act of courage happens after a loss. We lose something. Something that I had, I don't have. Some person that was with me isn't. What I thought was true is not anymore. Now we have to make an act of courage. We're in an unknown place. That's when we need their words. And how we handle those moments in time determines a lot about our life. And that's when we need the words. Just like me. I was like, what am I going to do? And that's when my grandma showed up for me. It was huge. And so we're going to help other people show up for, yes, their kids right in front of them, but also that 4th, 5th, 6th generation that's never going to know them, but they can have some words for them.
Oh, yeah. I love this because this is, you know, as a big history nerd, yeah. I'm just like, this is something that your family can, like, hand down. You know, yes. I think of all the, like, oral tradition, like, just random stories my family has, and no one ever, like, consolidated them into one, like, great piece of work or whatever. So it's just like, well, I'm pretty sure this grandparent did this over in Minnesota, and then Grandpa Richard was down in Lincoln, Nebraska for a while. I'm not sure why, but then he ended up in this Tyler, Minnesota, and eventually Wessington, South Dakota. You know, it's vague impressions. There's no, like, you know, especially with Richard gone now, it's like there's no hard first-hand account of it. And having something like this would just be amazing. I'm just kind of like, I wonder what it would take to get my Grandpa Robert over here to do one of these. Because he had a... he's in his, like, late 80s, early 90s now, and he was, you know, served honorably in Korea, and has a whole lot of, like, stories about stuff like that, and
that's good.
He, you know, and it just a fascinating life, just like the stories about that. He helped wire in the communication, because he had that military experience, and he ended up working for the phone company. He ended up being the guy that wired in all the phone connections for all the Minuteman missile silos out West River.
That's your grandpa?
Yeah.
And now look what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like in your veins.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you wouldn't... I didn't even think about it, but my mom, when I started working for where I work for, she's just like, you went to work for a phone company just like your grandpa. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I guess I did, didn't I?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's stories like that, you know, I wish that I would have had somebody write down the entirety of my dad's stories. Yeah, because there are just some stories that I wish that he would have told to somebody that would, you know, that wrote it down, that put it in a book, and that, you know, I'd still have those, and to kind of have it through his storytelling, and not somebody else who heard the story from him that's just completely different.
Well, that's the thing. I think it's a huge differentiating point is we can get memoirs made about us, but I was like, I didn't want to hear words about my grandma. I wanted to hear my grandma's words. So there are all these books we do. We just finished one up. It's like 171 pages, and we did that. Came out of 8 hours of interview, 171 pages.
Wow.
And, you know, this guy, he was Vietnam vet, and but it's all his words. You record them, you transcribe them word for word, and then we got a really specific writing process that polishes their words but doesn't change them. So it's a powerful thing. Even you know some of those stories, you'll be able to be like, you know what, I'm getting these things down because your kids, whoever's coming next, it's going to only fade. But now you can be like, okay, I'm not, this thing stops with me, I'm going to get this done. And it takes time, but damn, it's worth it.
And so you actually have like the recordings of all the... So is that part of it? Like you get the book and then you also get their voice?
Yep. So when it's done, we become part publisher, part vault. They can select, do you want to have anybody get this book or is it just your family line? I'm finishing up almost 100-year business plan to stay in business so that 7 generation deep can be like, you know what, my crazy Grandpa John, I never knew him, but they'll be able to buy a book from us. We'll be able to always reprint them, and we save the audio. So they got a little place, it's like a little vault in a way where we put their stuff in, and as we evolve, I don't even know what it's going to look like, but I feel so compelled to do something like this that we've got to make something. There's a lot of options of, there's something called a legacy box where you can put a bunch of stuff in a box, they'll digitize it. I don't know what we can do, I just think something's got to be, we've got to preserve this heritage, and I don't quite know how to do it. Right now, books, audio, eventually we'll add video, but I also think there's something to be said from these that we've done. We don't have, our mics are really discreet, like they don't see them.
Yeah.
The interview is so intentional, and I've done thousands of these interviews, so we can get them talking and they don't even realize what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I've got 40 points that I know we've got to cover, but they don't even need to know. And then, everything from the questions to the rug on the floor to the silverware we use for lunch is strategic to make them feel smooth, like we got them. And I'll tell you this, and you'll probably feel this, you do this for your dad, that after it's done and the stories are there, there's such a peace that people have. It's like you can grab it. It's just thick. Like there was a gentleman who came through, he got a diagnosis. We have a lot of this. I just got a diagnosis. I got to get in right now before I can't do it or before whatever. And man, that guy just went to town for 8 hours, and we span him out over a couple days or whatever. But when he was done, it was just like, it was such a peace, because we have such a desire to not be forgotten, to make this stuff. And when there it is. It's done. I really want to do, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I want to partner with some kind of medical organization to work with people in a hospice situation and measure what actually happens. Because I think it matters. I think it really matters. A couple people we have done this with, they're like, yeah, I was supposed to be checking out a couple months ago and I'm still going. And we don't know why. I just think there's something to it.
Absolutely.
I really do. Peace it absolutely affects our health.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when we have it, it just does extraordinary things. This human body we have, I never forget, I was with 2 Catholic priests. I'm not Catholic, but I was with 2 Catholic priests. It was like, gosh, what year was it? 2005 or something? I helped them raise money. I don't even know why. It was like my only fundraising event I ever did. Went over where Mayo Clinic was. They're giving me a tour of the whole city, and they're like, we know it was one of the biggest doctors in that whole place, and they go, if you go talk to her, she will tell you when it comes to the human body, we're just in kindergarten, and this is the Mayo Clinic, one of the best doctors in there. So it would be extraordinary to measure. I wonder if we did about 200, 300, 400 of these with that kind of a circumstance around them, and see what would happen.
Man, when you start working on something that you feel is a calling, so much evolves out of that.
That's true.
I mean, that's really awesome how you're not just, focused on, it's very cool that you're trying to tie in some science on this so that people have that confidence and knowledge that this really does matter. It will affect you. It will affect your, how you feel before you go, and that's what's more important than leaving peacefully and feeling satisfied and fulfilled with what you did with that last time. That's
I think people get healed too.
Oh, dude, yeah, I totally believe that that's true, that, to express yourself fully to everyone that you love and to those important people in your life, it's absolutely...
The catharsis has to be, like, pretty deep from that, you know?
And yeah, I truly, think that there's a physical, physiological action. And I'm sure that, you're going to hook people up to, what is it, EKG?
EKG?
Yeah. And you're going to see that their brain waves are different, and that, it's just, I'm sure of it, there's going to be a change in their synapses, and there's going to be a physiological change that is totally measurable. Whether we can measure it right now, which I believe we can with brainwaves, but or if there's like the doctor at the Mayo Clinic said, just in the kindergarten it's not, or just in kindergarten it's not like we've got a great grasp on everything that the human body is and everything that affects it. It's very sensitive to your stress levels.
That's right.
To every event
Food,
and experience
everything.
in your life.
Yep.
It's the summation of...
Well, and think about this. Like, there is, what is it? There is, I forget the exact number, so you can't exactly quote me. I think 400 trillion cells in our body. There are more cells in our body than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. And each cell knows exactly what the other cell is doing simultaneously as this happens. That's just mind-boggling to think about what the heck we have going on in us. And they're all influenced by that stuff. I mean, water is the most impressionable substance. There is a ton of experimentation on what our thoughts actually do to a water molecule. And what is it? 80% of our brain's water, a very majority of our body's water. And when you really get to thinking about it, I'll tell you this story. Like, my dad is in the hospital right now, just had open heart surgery. He has done this. We got his story done. And I was just thinking about it as you're saying that. I'm like, I didn't have a ton of worries with you're worried about your dad, open heart surgery, he's 74. That's a tough thing to go through for anybody. I can't even imagine. But I'm like, we got your stuff, dude. Like, you're not going to be not remembered, and we've got some stuff down. And I do think that really makes a difference. That's just pure experience based. I can't measure that or anything. But just my own thing right now.
No, that's powerful.
It's like, we got you.
Yeah, a feeling of being secure with carrying on their memory and doing it in a way that is gonna, portray them as they were and pass on the really important things that they want, passed on.
This really channels for me, like, before industrialization, when you had like families that lived together in the same place for long periods of time and they all lived together and worked together and everything else, and they'd have like an oral tradition or a written tradition of like the family history that we passed down, and we're the Smiths and we did this and we had family at this and things like that. And it's a very human, ancient thing that you can see throughout history that people just love and cling to. But in modern context, especially modern Western, American families and context, we don't have a like replacement for that. It's like we basically have like, we bond over some pop culture, and there are some families that do some things for it. I'm not throwing anybody, down anything they're doing, but this just blows me away because it seems it's cool because it's new, and yet it's partaking in a tradition that is very old,
ancient, yes.
And like very part of the human experience, and ancient even. That
is it, because when I'm laying in bed thinking about my grandma, I was like, it's like I'm touching a mystery. It was so deep. This isn't a me thing. I'm tapping into something.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah. And I mean, it is. It's just, it's a mystery. And it's just freaking cool. And that, I call it a battle for identity. You hit it right in the head. The intro of that thing starts off with, here is what we were like in an agrarian society. You're around your family, you're working together, you see mom and dad problem solving, they're equal roles, but they're distinct, and you're around them all the time.
Yeah.
Then what happened? We got industrial. Dad goes off and exchanges his place on the farm with the factory line.
Yeah.
And so what happens then? Now mom's doing everything for the kids. Kids are absent of their father. Then dad goes to war. Now mom goes to the factory line, kids are at home doing what they do, new model there, dad's off to war, and then we just continue from there.
Yeah.
Now we're absent. What do our kids have to raise them? The culture.
Yeah.
iPad, iPhone, their friends. It's a battle for identity.
Yep. Yeah, I like that.
You hit the nail on the head though, Robert.
Yeah, that's and I love this because I feel like it's super real, and you're talking about like the iPads and the pop culture stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I mean, look around here. I am a pop culture nut, and I always joke I'm a Denzian of the internet because I mean I do everything online. It's kind of my thing, but there's something that feels very, very real, and I feel like it cuts through the noise with this. You know what I mean?
Well, and I don't say those things are bad. They're great tools, right? For sure. It's just they can't be the number one. Go ahead.
No, I'm waiting until the end of the sentence so that I just don't want to forget my thing. So.
Yeah, okay. Okay, wow.
It's just a little
good move.
Yep.
I'm going to do that. But it's like these tools are good if they become the primary and they tip the scale. 51% of because I'm consuming with the technology. If I'm a kid, my parents aren't home, who am I spending the majority of my time with? And if I'm tipping the scale, it doesn't need to be 100% mom and dad. It has to be 51% compared to everything else, so I think. Of how do we tip that scale? Is all I'm saying. These things are good. My son is a freaking beast. He's 14. He can do videos. He is on payroll at our business. He brings real value. I love that. And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna teach you how to work. Nobody else. You're not gonna go to McDonald's to learn how to work. I think you should go work at McDonald's or be a server at some point.
Yep.
Your first couple years old, you're working with me. I'm gonna teach you how to work your freaking face off and show you how good a dinner tastes when you've worked all day. Is the best way to make dinner taste good. But that's I totally agree. What do you got? What's go for it.
Well, plus also it helps me like formulate the thoughts before wording because
I like it.
Just, we were talking about like the social media raising people essentially, and just to put anecdote in there, like in 2001, I started dating, like my best friend, and about 11 years later, I moved out of, we moved, it was like a long distance, crazy thing off and on, because I deserved it, kind of thing, and, but we were finally like done with school and stuff, and so moved in and got to realizing this wasn't very cool and stuff, and a couple years later I moved out and back to not back to like my own place, but back to being on my own in a different apartment, same town still, and those kind of things, because of course, my fault and that kind of shit, but I started spending more time on social media stuff, and slowly and embarrassingly, like, started realizing how isolated I had become in only him being the only, source of info, because no one else could be trusted, blah, blah, blah. And of course, the more that started coming from him, the increases in craziness with the whole boiling frogs thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real thing.
So, like, and then began to conflict with stuff that I was regaining memories about, with how my parents actually weren't crazy people who hated me and were trying to ruin my life because they hated me and were trying to kill him and all kinds of just like crazy shit. And it's like, that doesn't seem true, and the stuff that you say is proof, and I don't see any proof of even happening, and all kinds of other like crazy things. And then some of the stuff you say is absolutely true, but everyone's in denial of it. Really seem like these really fucked up conspiracy theories things, like, not exactly aliens, but lizard people are real kind of thing. I'm like, I never thought I agreed with that, but I'm like, well, no, that's retarded. So like, I'm trying to remember where I was going with it, but yeah, so...
Talking about social media isolating you.
Yeah, so along with, like, the then an isolating thing and the family stuff with jobs and things, like, of course, we were... I don't want to say, like, poorish and stuff when my parents got, married, but they were both, we're not going to be married. I can't find the right person. They're all jerks. And of course they are, except for, not my parents.
Sure, yeah.
So when they first got married and my dad was doing all this entrepreneurial stuff and mom was still doing, like, teaching at the high school, so of course, grammar Nazi, proud of it.
There you go.
And... doing the community theater stuff, we lived in, like, the hotel, and we didn't have a whole lot of stuff, so, yeah, I understand entrepreneurial stuff and what it means to be paid last and all that kind of stuff that some people think I don't understand, but whatever it is. So, but for, babysitting things, we went to work at the hotel, so, of course, I have... been doing housekeeping since I was, 4-ish, and, or at least, racing your siblings, taking the sheets off the beds, then you can go swimming later. It's like, I get to go swimming every day, this is great, for people have to, so I didn't know what summer vacation was for a long time, because we were in the tourism business. Go tourism, West River, for reals, yeah. So it helped regain, or it being back into the world via dick around on Facebook, so it's like, I forgot the world was big and not scary and stuff like that. So regaining memories and things, being like, yeah, it just kind of helped. I have to rewind in my head. Helped me remember who I wanted to be when I was little and how far away from that I was tricked into becoming. So the whole somewhat autobiography type thing is like, I guess I don't know, do I have answers to those kind of questions? But it does help refocus that as far as, like you're resetting, come on, Google Maps, and it's like doing the whole spinny arrow thing. I'm like, like I'm already lost all the time. But, I'm going on, let's see, about almost 3 years, like 2.5 years from breaking away from that all kinds of profanity words that haven't even been invented yet thing, and just, it's like, I don't know, refocusing, like, everything from where I want to live, what I want to do with my life, like, career-wise, and all things that you think, but then you're, like, disillusioned by because you have learned a lot more things, and you're like, just this. And stuff, that was it, that was my thing.
Social media definitely can widen your sight of the world, but like you said, I really like your 51% of it should be your, parents or your family's history, and not just the what is culture now. I think probably in any scientific revolution, which people want to change and start doing that because it's the next thing, and that's why being completely enveloped in technology is really a lot of fun and something that you don't want to avoid, because that's major part of now, and you get to experience just so much with technology that you never had before. Like you said, it widens your vision of world vision, but there's a lot of sameness that comes out of that, because it is all the same kind of stuff. There's so much more, options with YouTube and things like that, where it's not 3 channels where everybody can talk about everything, but there's so much, but at the same time, you should still have your own personal family identity and know that, but it's like that is kind of ripped away, and you become the identity of the culture where you're a shitty person on the internet. You're angry. Leave a bad comment. Put some of the negative stuff in the most open and accessible area, and to remember who you are, where you come from, and that you are not an anonymous face. Which that was the fun of the internet. I like they say back in the 90s, that was the empowering part, was the anonymity of the internet. But anyway, that's a whole nother fucking thing.
Well, you just gave us kind of your version of what happens to us all. Here I am growing up, I'm entrenched in my family, I know who they are, I feel like I have a good, and then I get swept away, and I lose that. And good for you in having the strength to, somebody else started speaking words into you, and you said, stop the madness, basically, of, this is not the truth, and now you're venturing back, and this is what happens to us all. And it's like, so what do we, if we don't have this story and these words from our family, there's a place in our heart for those, and it's going to get filled by something if there's a void. And so you can go to the culture, you can go to news, to media, you can go to the one of the biggest things for our culture is this whole self-help industry. As a publisher, I know this space.
Oh yeah.
And it's such a bunch of crap. It doesn't work. It will never work. And you got to get, there's the secret. And then there's the secret to the secret. The secret after the secret, or the 11 steps to this. Now you need the 12 step. Because if I buy that, it's wired so that when I buy it, I feel like I'm actually doing something. I'm not doing anything. So what am I passionate about? All these new things. If we look back, what's the story of my family and what's the story of my own life up to this point? If we look back first, the way forward will become super clear. Some kid was just asking me the other day, he's like, yeah, do I start to kind of, what am I passionate about? I said, don't even ask yourself those questions. Go from birth till now and go through your whole life. And you're going to notice themes, you're going to notice situations you continuously find yourself in, roles you keep going into, and I say, don't make meaning out of it. Just sit with your wife, sit with somebody, and walk through everything, record it or whatever. But I'm like, just walk through it, because we're meaning-making machines. Don't make meaning out of it yet. Go through it, and you're going to know where to go and what to do. I can't give you a formula for that, because I'm just seeing this now after all these years of doing this. I've hit that kind of like 10,000th hour point where now I'm saying, holy shit, look at all this stuff. All these patterns with all these people, 20 plus countries I've had these conversations with. There's always these patterns. So I think if us, even the ages we're all at here, I can still speak words over my kids, whatever, but even just for myself to say, okay, from birth till now, what has all happened in my life? Let me take stock. And in that process, my next steps are going to be super clear. And I'll have that, what you're saying of, I know who the heck I am. And you can't tell me that I'm not this way. This is me. This is who I am. And I describe it in this book as a place of fullness. I am who I am in my fullness. That's what I'm trying to get to. It's an internal state of lacking nothing. Not an external. I might be flat broke. Internally, though, I'm in fullness. I can do this. I don't know how, but I can handle it. That's that peace.
Well, I bought a self-help book. Hilariously,
who hasn't?
No. Yeah, right. Seriously. Yes. Hilariously, it's about
at some point in your life,
planning, so nothing that I need right away, or right now. But there were two little things that I liked about it. Not the steps that they wanted you to do to figure out, what are your interests and what do you care about at the end. Not so much that, but just his little nuggets of studies. And one of the studies was, I believe it was done at Harvard, where that was the kind of end result or what they found was that we don't necessarily know what the next step is for ourselves or what we want to get invested in next. But the people around us generally know even better than us and can kind of point us in the right direction. And who better, that I think was just speaking of like friends and, your friends kind of circle. But even more so, nobody knows you better than your grandma that knew you since you were born, and nobody knows you as good as your family. So, like you're saying, that let those words, let your ancestors' words, or let those guide you and don't really try and force it or try and decipher it too much. Just kind of let that be in you and understand that you have that.
And I shouldn't say I got a little excited. Not all of those books are bad. Some of them are engineered to make you keep buying them. We need them. It's just the scale again. 51-49, what's going to tip the scale. I read them all. I read a ton of them. But there's just some self-helpy stuff that just is...
That's very clearly like a money-making machine.
And it's not as necessary as the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
You doing this kind of stuff. It's just not as necessary. I need that. It's the gravy, though. It's not the meat and the potatoes of
but
my...
gravy is nice.
Yeah. Maybe it's your gravy then.
The Sioux Empire Podcast proudly presents this week's Shameless Plugs.
Well, Jeremy, we're wrapping things up here. So this is the point of the show where you get on your soapbox and tell people what you're doing, how they can learn more about you, how to contact you, what they should bring, things like that. And if you got any events coming up or
Awesome.
multiple projects, this is your time to go ahead and throw those out there. Your social media, anything like that you want to plug. This is
Yeah, I
it.
appreciate that. I wish I could actually literally stand on one. That'd be kind of cool.
We'll have to get one.
I think the first thing is somewhat of a shameless plug. I'm not going to say who to vote for, but we got an exciting election in this town, right?
Yes, we do.
I think everybody should go vote, right? It was so cool to see. I was voting the other day absentee, and some guy was told he couldn't vote because he wasn't in the official city limits, but he hadn't voted the first time around, and I'm like, oh, we did. Another guy's come out to vote. He didn't vote the first time. I was like, I hope there's gorgs of people that do that.
Me too.
So vote Tuesday, May 1st. Super exciting time for our city.
Do keep in mind this episode airs a week from now.
Shoot, crap.
Yeah.
Check that. You should have voted.
voted.
If not, shame on you.
Exactly. Thank you or congratulations to all those that did vote.
Yeah,
Yes.
there you go. Congratulations.
Thank you for the historic turnout.
I counted it up, and I believe that there was 32,027 votes cast in the mayoral election the first time around. So all 32,027 of you get out there and then bring your friend because there's a heck of a lot more people that can vote.
Exactly.
But sorry to...
No, you're good. A week from now, so May 16th, I'm speaking at 1 Million Cups.
Oh,
In
nice.
Sioux Falls. 9 a.m. it's going to be at the Orpheum Theater.
Oh, you get the big one. Nice.
And the 1 Million Cups, you guys know, I think it's one of the best events that happens every single week for the entrepreneurial community in Sioux Falls. I can't wait to present at that. Hopefully we'll get a lot of these kind of conversations going. But I would say if anybody wants to connect with us, go to our website, thronepg.com. You can find us on Facebook, Throne Publisher Group. Just Google us. You'll find us.
And all these links will be in the show notes, so you can find them on there.
And you can get I give away a free book. You just sign up on the website. I'll send it to you. I literally just mail it to people. My goal is 2,000 this year to give away. Other than that, the last thing I always say to people is, whatever the heck we're going through, I think about this a lot, and I hate to sound, this is really me on my soapbox. Whatever the heck we find ourselves in, situations, circumstances, things, we all got lives, we all got great stuff, and sometimes we have some not so great stuff. 30 years, 40 years, 20 years, 10, I'm going to be telling about this circumstance. I'm going to be telling this story. So I always think, how do I want to be telling this story? How do I want to say I dealt with the people? How do I want to say I got up every morning? How do I want to tell this story? And I do my best to try to be that way. I think if we all did that, I think it'd make a big deal, big, huge, hairy deal for our families, for the culture at large. It's a mental discipline, and it challenges you to think a little bit different. I think it does something to you. So I just would encourage people to think about that.
Very cool. Seth, I think you're up next this time around.
Yeah. I'd like to shamelessly plug the Patreon of my favorite author, Melissa Rochelle May. Check her out on Patreon. Forgot the total link there. And then also Sioux Empire Podcast Patreon. Throw in a few shekels, as the great podcaster Mark Maron says so often. We love doing this, and Rob needs to eat. He's fat. No, I'm just
help me bring back the team's fruit tray. They're all getting pretty pretty bitey around here now that help me buy the team a fruit tray before each episode.
Yeah.
So check us out on Patreon.
Orange melon.
Aww.
I know it's cantaloupe, but whatever. Orange melon.
Did you have anything else, Seth? Or
No, sorry about the joke, fat joke.
You're fine.
You know, I don't normally make them, because they're so easy, because it's such a big target.
Oh, jeez!
I'm a
You did it!
Terrible American that has, anyway.
Natasha.
I think you should take a stab at his mustache or something.
Yeah.
Oh, my girlfriend's actually fiance plugs this perfectly all the time.
I really like it, by the way.
Thank
With
you.
the hair,
She did a good job. There was no division before her. It used to be very unkempt.
Kind of going for like a scrag homeless Hitler thing going on.
There's
Homeless Hitler.
what is that? Okay, you've seen that movie A Million Ways to Die in the West?
Yes.
I haven't, but yeah.
Well, you should. There's a funny song about mustaches.
Oh, that's right. There is, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an okay movie.
But they got a Back to the Future reference in it.
They do. So there's your Back to the Future reference for this episode. Well played. Well played. She's got to get that in every episode.
I didn't last episode,
Nailed
but
it.
you can always back in time to it.
We can, yeah. Oh.
That was it.
Okay.
Rob,
Well-
what do you have for Shameless Plugs?
But I
Okay.
didn't really do my shameless plug.
Oh, what? I thought you
I
said
didn't
that
know
was it.
that was the end of my random thing.
Oh,
Okay,
you
so
gotta
what's
do
your
it.
shameless plug?
My shameless plug was like the arts and crafts and writing stuff that I will get done someday because I'm gonna have a booth sooner or later at Buffalo Roundup. Go to Buffalo Roundup.
Awesome. Good to hear.
That was the thing.
Very cool.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. My shameless plugs this week are, once again, I'm going to ask you to please support the Sioux Empire Podcast. Like I said, please help get these people a fruit tray so they stop chewing on my arms. Also going to point out that I believe this... No, we've got a few more episodes yet after this one, but the Sioux Empire Film Festival is coming up. We are a sponsor this year. Be sure to check that out, and it's going to be a really great event with some great South Dakota filmmakers premiering a lot of work. Be sure to, show up and see that local art that people have poured their hearts and souls into, and it's a good time. It's a very good time to hang out, and you actually get to talk to the people that made a movie. It's fun. And then the other thing I'm going to shamelessly plug is Macabre Grimoire, which at the time of this airing will have been out for 4 days. It is Ari Show, Travis Nye, and myself. We do paranormal investigations and weird history and strange phenomena and things like that. So if that's up your alley, if you like our last podcast on the left or Astonishing Legends, that kind of podcast, that's what we're going for. It's a lot of fun. Be sure to check that out. Thank you for joining us this week. Jeremy, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And we will see you all next week.
Bye. See you later.
Bye.